And when I was introduced, I was one of the last speakers of the day. I got up to speak, and they introduced me from California, and there was this moan across the whole audience, probably 300 multimillionaires and billionaires. I get up and I give my little speech, and I said, you can laugh all you want and deride California, but we won. We beat you already. And one guy in the audience goes, what do you mean? We can vote a whole bunch of Republicans. And I said, guess what? Have you checked your kid's Snapchat, Instagram, or TikTok today?
We own you. Californication, as sung by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, was pure prophecy and needs to be put into the hymn book as straight prophecy.
Yeah.
Okay? We own your kids. What we do, they do. We are cool. You are not. You think the border between Nevada and Utah, you think that line somewhere between Elko and Wendover is going to save you? Like the secret combinations like are sometimes very fairly out in the open.
319,000 public school teachers in the state of California. A good chunk of them are Latter-day Saints. But they're paying into a system that literally funds and subsidizes these kinds of attacks on our faith, on our principles, every single.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Midnight Strike Through Mormons. I'm your host, Cardinellis. I'm joined in the studio by Lance Christensen. You may remember him last time talking about whether or not it's time for California members of the church to flee the state in a recent podcast. Well, he's here again to tell us just how much worse it has gotten. And really, we don't like the rubber clause. Do you associate with any organizations or people that are actually truly against the church during the temple recommend? We don't like, painting with too broad of a brush during that question. But at this point, according to Lance and some of the things I've seen, I'm wondering how you can even be in one of these teachers unions with what we're going to see just happened in the California state legislature here really fast with our boy, Lance Christensen. Before we actually toss back to you, Lance, I'm just going to have people see what just happened. Okay.
AB 1078 is a bill that intends to combat the national Christian white supremacist movement, which aims to ban books, school curriculum, and even more in our schools.
Oh, so okay, that's a strong indictment. And what is the crime of these book burners?
And this issue makes people uncomfortable. It's a tough discussion, and it's a tough issue. And a lot of it, I think, is due to the misunderstanding of what people mean when they say white Christian nationalist.
Okay, so I just want everybody to listen very carefully to the opening of this, because this is what's getting done to you. And I think previous generations have not been good at stopping this. They've just, strayed away from this argument, this kind of vagary that casts this big dark shadow all over you. And you're just like, oh, I'm going to run away from it. But this is how they operate. Like, this is how they lie to you. They come out guns blazing, say that, there's Christian white nationalism on the rise and all this other stuff that's never specific, but always vague. And then they offer you an out. And the out is always, if you do what the progressive political left says, well, then you are washed of this original sin of your whiteness or of your Christian nationalism, which, could be anything as simple as paying your bills on time or, thinking that maybe we shouldn't sexualize children as young as, 8 years old. So, let's just see. He offers you an out of that original sin.
And so I want to make sure that people understand really the definition to hopefully put more people at ease that if the shoe doesn't fit, then no one's talking about you.
And the only way you make the shoe not fit on your foot, how is it, Lance?
Basically agree with his entire premise.
Vote for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always political. They take your humanity hostage in order to gain political leverage. So I'm going to let you jump in here. I'm sorry. I invited you as a guest on my show, but I've gotten so fired up on this. I want our audience to see what's happening here before we talk about it. Let's let them finish.
We're really talking about the radicalization of the Christian faith to, quite frankly, draw upon people's angers, economic angst, people's search for additional resources, and drawing upon people's biases to really achieve and use that anger to achieve a political objective.
So if you don't like children being sexualized by your school district at an abhorrently early age, through the curriculum and the books that are being presented and shoved upon them without your consent, you are now radicalized. Like radicalized. And the only way that you can be unguilty of this radicalization is by going with them. Like, this is literally holding your humanity hostage. So, okay, I'm glad you stepped up. People are going to see when you got to step up here for a second, Lance. But I want people to see this, so they know exactly what we're talking about and how they come after us. So here we go.
And unfortunately, that number one is happening internationally. This is not something unique to the United States, but it's also made its way here to California. And the banning of books has been a blatant and in some cases a successful effort to whitewash the history that students are taught in all levels of public education.
Okay, so of course, tell us, Lance, what is the real actual purpose of this bill that you're that you're opposing, how people can help you oppose it, and then we'll toss back to the YouTube video where you do such a great full-throated defense of this. But, you know, before I just have people watch the video of you making the full-throated defense, I might as well just, you know, have you make it right here, right now.
No, I appreciate it.
But yeah, so tell us what's going on now that we've seen how they lie to us and how they pigeonhole you. Tell us what's going on and what California members that are still here need to do, and what teachers abroad might want to consider before they keep going with their unions that are adopting these same ideas.
Well, I think Latter-day Saints in California need to understand you can't play patty cake with these people anymore. So if you're not willing to actually step up and have these hard conversations, they will continue to gaslight you, to call you names, to offend you, even if you're there to have a commonsensical and rational debate. And that's what I try to do here during this conversation. It was in the assembly hearing. This was near the end of several hours of debates on other bills.
And what is the bill exactly? Just tell us what this bill is. It seems super milquetoast.
Well, basically, he's seeing how a lot of parents are taking the school boards over and they're pulling the CRT, the SEL, the comprehensive sex ed out of the curriculum, or not focusing on really actually very objectionable and pornographic material to ages kindergarten.
Yeah, like I literally cannot read the books that they're putting in front of my children in some of these school districts on YouTube, or the community guidelines of YouTube. You know what I'm saying? Will literally call it against COPPA laws, which is child protection laws.
Exactly.
And yet these people want to say that it is white Christian nationalism if we oppose this. Hey guys, quick break to talk about Sheeple. It's a children's book written by one of our viewers, Royal Ragsdale, that teaches your kids how to stand up for their faith, stand up for their friends, stand up for their values instead of being sheeple. It's totally affordable and available on Amazon. Link will be in the description. Okay, so here, I'll just toss. I think you handled the first part of this pretty well, but let's just see what you say here. All right.
Lance Christensen, the vice president of the California Policy Center. I've been around this building for a long time. It's shocking to have an author of a bill make such inflammatory commentary on those that would oppose this bill in good faith.
Which is exactly what we're doing. Just a good faith argument saying, hey, no, we think this is too much too early.
Exactly.
You know, like we don't care what you do when you're over 18, or nowadays like 21 is the new 18.
I don't care what you do in your own home. This isn't a public school.
Yeah, exactly. It's public school. Okay, so keep going. You're a white Christian nationalist now having to defend yourself against that gruesome attack or smear.
I hope that the committee and the chair will take them to advisement. And how many attacks on those who oppose radical indoctrination doesn't mean we're all white Christian nationalists.
Okay, and then I'm going to skip forward a little bit here because it blew my mind when they interrupted you, dude.
Yeah.
This blew my mind.
White Christian nationalist because his intern said so. So I hope, Chair, that there will be some correction here about the professional demeanor of having an intelligent conversation. We have our comments written in opposition.
Let's focus on the merits
and I wish.
So look at that. You get interrupted by Caesar. Our government literally interrupts and censors you, saying, let's stick to the facts. Let's stick to the issues at hand. Meanwhile, they said nothing, literally not a peep, while Homeboy goes on a 3-minute rant about you being a white Christian nationalist. Like, this is what we're up against in California. It's not just on Twitter. This is the actual government in cahoots with the unions, who are the largest political donors in California. The secret combinations are sometimes very fairly out in the open, and I really think it gave me pause to hear you say, how can a member of our church be in one of these unions? But I mean, when this is what we're up against and this is what your union dues are funding, I interrupted you. Keep going. Keep talking, Lance.
So in a situation like this, where you want to have a rational conversation, but it keeps being made an emotional conversation, you have a lot of teachers out there who just want to be there to teach the kids. That's it. A lot of Latter-day Saints are good at this. We have an incredible amount of Latter-day Saint teachers in California, 319,000 public school teachers in the state of California. A good chunk of them are Latter-day Saints. But they're paying into a system that literally funds and subsidizes these kinds of attacks on our faith, on our principles, every single day. And not just in the legislature, in the classroom, at the school board meetings, in the curriculum, everywhere.
What can be done? Can there be a petition made saying, hey, Corey Jackson, you got to apologize. I don't care too much about those kind of stupid little apologies. And I think some of that is dumb, but it's like, what pressure can be applied? Because this is unsustainable. Our societies cannot coexist in a pluralist system if, by not wanting pornographic material that could not be read on this YouTube channel put in front of my children without my consent or knowledge in the public education system that I have entrusted them with. And this should be unanimous. All these people going after churches saying, oh, they need to protect children more, so on and so forth. Yeah, wait until you see what the public sector is trying to do to the kids before you worry about any of these churches, all right? Because what these guys are trying to put in front of children under the threat, if you disagree with them, of being a white Christian nationalist, aka domestic terrorist. Don't forget, they're calling all of the teachers that are showing up to the school board meetings. All of the parents that are pushing back at the school board meetings are now domestic terrorists.
Yeah, the FBI is doing that. Yes.
Yeah, the FBI is classifying them as that. So, this is real. This is out of the think tanks. It's out of academia, and it is in real life, where elected officers, elected with money and pressure from the unions that members of our church are contributing to, in states that don't require it. The state of California does not require that you are part of the teachers union. We're a right to work state. So I usually don't like, mixing work and religion too much, because it gets a little bit dicey. Sure. And who are you to judge? That's not my jurisdiction, right? But when you're hearing, this is not just a state assembly member, isn't he also the guy in charge of the superintendent of schools, or is that a different guy?
That's another guy.
Oh, that's another guy? Okay. Well, either way, they're all in cahoots with each other over here.
They are.
Right?
And they're all paid for by the California Teachers Association, which is the largest union in the state of California. They're the most powerful. $300 million per year comes into their system to advocate, legislate, to campaign, and politicize this stuff. $300 million a year. That's $600 million an election cycle. What do you do with more than $500 million? When people want to talk about money in politics, go talk to your teachers union, because that money's flowing like crazy. And it's not flowing just at the state level. It's flowing into the individual districts that have to put up these elections every other year. And when you have 944 school districts, that is 2,500 to 3,000 school board races that this money's flowing into. So the money is a significant issue. And if you're paying into this as a teacher, then guess what you're getting out of all this? Attacked all the time and undermined all the time.
Now, did we just find the sensational clip here? And are we just making a mountain out of a molehill? Is there really a bunch of people behind the scenes that are rational? Or is this representative, you feel, of the system? This is not a flaw in the system, but a feature.
This is a feature. It's not a bug. This is what you see because the left has so overtaken the political governmental offices in Sacramento that they own it, lock, stock, and barrel. They don't have to hide anymore. This is the thing. They're telling the truth. We should believe them. And so it's so out of left field, but it's not. Just that same week, he did the same exact speech on the assembly floor, and nobody called him on it. He was out there talking about how everybody who opposes his big agenda is a white national Christian supremacist or whatever order of the words he puts those in.
Yeah.
So this is not just like a one and done. If you'd spent any time in this hearing this day, which I did, I was there the entire day, you'd be sick to your stomach. I mean, honestly, the whole day, Bill's about fat shaming, about transgender kids. Yeah, really, honestly.
I fat shame myself on this show.
There's a bill,
like,
a bill against fat shaming.
Really?
Yes.
By the way, what does that mean?
I don't know what it means. I was a kid who had acne in high school.
Yeah.
Do you not think that I got made fun of all the time?
Now, if you don't say yes to the trans woman who's really a dude, and you say like, oh, you're not my style, and you try and be nice, they're going to start saying that's fat shaming. Now you got to go to jail for that.
So in his area, he comes from Riverside, this guy, Corey Jackson. In his area, they have a high school down there who's got a black transgender, a boy who's become a girl, who's now going to the girls' locker room, exposing himself, pushing girls around. He's beat up several girls. I think we're up to 4 now. And like nobody did anything for a while.
Oh, because they're mortified. You can't touch that.
Exactly.
Like you can't touch that.
But at what
he
point,
could literally pull out a revolver and shoot somebody.
yes.
And the cops would probably be like, I quit.
Super protected class. And what we have now is we've really created a situation by which these kids are being exposed to the most crass and insane things. And if you're a teacher and they can sit in a classroom and deal with this and you have to deal with pronouns, it gets even worse. There was a bill that was passed several years ago that said, okay, listen, we're going to allow boys that think they're girls to go into the gym locker rooms and change with these kids, right? We can have a discussion about whether that's good or not. But what the policy has evolved into is now the teachers are supposed to lie to the parents about these kids transitioning at school.
Yeah, and hide it from the parents.
So what does that teach our kids? I mean, it teaches our kids that it's all right to lie. That teaches our kids.
Well, and it puts a wedge between parents and the government now becomes the person you can trust because you can't trust your parents.
Except that we used to trust the teachers. We would have parent-teacher conferences. We would go in and if the kid was misbehaving, then the parent would say, hey, it's all right for you to show a little discipline. Well, it gets even better, Cardin, because what we've done is we passed a bill a few years ago that got rid of the willful defiance sort of penalties.
I got to tell you, though, we've had a solid moan here for a solid 15 minutes about the horrid state of the government and the secret combinations that are operating relatively out in the open. But I got to call out California members of the church here. Mm-hmm. I got to call out my own because you want to know what? It's their absolute dereliction of duty that has led to this crap. Okay? I mean, they all got rich here for 40 years. Between 1960 and 2000, make it 50 years. Between 1960 and 2010, when all of a sudden things started getting a little expensive and the early exodus started happening. And then by 2020 during COVID, it was just a mass exodus, right? But for 60 or 70 years, Utah Mormons converted into California Mormons, came down here, sucked the state dry. And when things got tough, instead of being real men and women and fighting back, becoming the salt that keeps the savor in the plate, becoming the small minority that ends up becoming the backbone of the majority. Instead of living up to their Christ-like calling to lift where they stand, they all fled like pansies to Utah, thinking it's Zion, okay? Not realizing that Utah's just 10 cars behind them on the same train going over the same cliff. Just because you're on the caboose instead of with the engineer right in front where Los Angeles is, doesn't mean that you're still not headed towards the same cliff. And what society allows these words to be uttered? Like, what society literally allows its politicians and its ruling class to come out and say 40% of the population, are X nationalists because they don't want, I can't even say the word on YouTube, read to children who are 8 years old.
Right.
And so I don't know. There's a lot of pansies that have left, and there's only some tough people like you and me that are here to fight this. So what can the real people, not those freaking that moved to Utah, you know what I'm saying? What can we do, man?
Well, I remind people, just like you said, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen in another place. It is happening.
Are you laughing that I'm writing down that I have to edit out that word?
Well,
that
that's fine. It is happening. It's happening in other places. It's just not quite there yet. Like you said, the train hasn't completely come off the tracks. It will come off the tracks. None of this is going to stop here at the Sierras and just, bury itself. It's going to continue because I did a speech a couple years ago, actually. I went to Wisconsin. I was meeting with a whole bunch of large philanthropic donors, most of them very conservative and very wealthy. And when I was introduced, I was one of the last speakers of the day. I got up to speak, and they introduced me from California, and there was this moan across the whole audience, probably 300 multimillionaires and billionaires. I get up and I give my little speech, and I said, you can laugh all you want and deride California, but we won. We beat you already. And one guy in the audience goes, what do you mean? We can vote a whole bunch of Republicans. And I said, guess what? Have you checked your kid's Snapchat, Instagram, or TikTok today?
We own you. Californication, as sung by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, was pure prophecy and needs to be put into the hymn book as straight prophecy.
Yeah.
Okay? We own your kids. What we do, they do. We are cool. You are not. You think the border between Nevada and Utah, you think that line somewhere between Elko and Wendover is going to save you?
No, it doesn't. Yeah. And
so how soon until this comes to Utah, do you think?
Well, it's already there. I mean, you must have family and friends that are there that are experiencing these things. I actually just found out a cousin of mine's going through this sort of stuff in Salt Lake County. I was kind of depressed about it a little bit, but then I thought, listen, the people that bury their heads in the sand and act like it's not going to happen to them because, all is well in Zion sort of approach, they forget that you have got to stand to be counted all the time. And we can't just run from this stuff. We can't act like it's not here. And technology has put us in a position where it is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And there's no amount, like, you probably have the same thing in Elders Quorum where you have this conversation about smart technology and, limiting your kids' access to the internet. And there's always that one or two guys go, well, my kids don't have cell phones for that reason. I'm like, your kids go to school. They have athletics. Their friends are all on this stuff. You're not saving them by just withholding it from them.
You're at best postponing it.
Or you get them to a situation where they're not capable of handling it outside the household. I had this situation. I was bishop for a short period of time. Well, it was 6 years, but years ago, I had a family who had a child, not going into too much detail, really protected this child. And I used to tell the parents, if you coddle this child too much, the child's going to fall apart. Well, I'm watching this is happening in real time. And it's unfortunate and sad.
You were a bishop, bro?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Cool. You'd be fun, bishop.
When you guys were talking about some of the crazy stuff the other day, I was reliving some wild experiences.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
You know what? Most of my, and it's funny, let's get back to the social media stuff. Most of my people that came in to confess, I would say 99% of the pornography problems I had with my young men came from Instagram.
Wait, what?
Yeah. If I had kids with pornography problems, it almost invariably, I think maybe one kid, almost always came from Instagram.
Wait, you mean it started on Instagram and then gravitated elsewhere, though, right?
Well,
because Instagram, okay, fine, you can get some spicy e-girls, but you can't like, it's against the community guidelines to post anything and it gets flagged and there's
when
filters.
You're a teenager, things pop pretty fast. I mean, you can only filter so much. And again, Instagram's come a long way since I was bishop.
Oh, geez,
but I'll tell you, I saw the picture. I didn't see the pictures, but they would say, they would describe the pictures. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And so part of the repentance process is like, you got to delete the app for now until you can show you have some sort of self-control, and they work through it. And then they come back and then they would say, okay, are you ready to have it back or not? But we have a whole a society of digital natives now that we can't put this genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
So we've got to figure out how to deal with it. And right now, the way that the world, the culture in California wants to deal with it is just to, well, okay, it's here, so let's just shove it down everybody's throat all the time. And we've over-sexualized everything. Well, you can't talk about anything anymore without some sort of, addressing some sort of gender issue or sexual issue. It's just ridiculous. I don't remember as a young boy.
Yeah, kids don't have their innocence anymore.
No. And I was, my wife and I were talking about my 6-year-old Brock, who loves the show. We talked to him.
Wait. Did you say your 6-year-old?
16.
Oh, okay. I was about to say your 6-year-old watching Midnight Strike Through Mormons.
My 10-year-old loves the show too.
Oh, really?
Oh, Luke,
all right.
Luke
Rock
loves
on,
the show. Yeah,
dude.
we watch it going to school. So when we have these conversations, I would say years ago with my oldest, who's on his mission now, we didn't have to go this far. But with him, it's a regular, almost everyday conversation about all this kind of stuff.
Jeez, wow.
And we're in a pretty conservative area up in Northern California. We're not in some radical, crazy, San Francisco or something. It's a conservative rural area, and you're still inundated by this stuff.
Yeah.
So having a legislator go and say, we want everybody to be controlled by Sacramento about what kind of curriculum you can have, it's more than curriculum. It's the whole culture is just completely denigrated. And getting back to your original question, teachers have sat by silent for too long. And I hear this all the time because I travel the state. I've been doing a tour of the state. I've hit 10 cities across California. I was in Redding last week. I'll be in Bakersfield tomorrow. I was in San Fernando, Glendora, Bel Air. I've hit Huntington Beach, all across the state. When I go there, I get these teachers that come up to me and they do the whispered hush tones like, you're right. You're right. The
I get that all the
terrible.
time. People coming up and saying like, oh, just, you keep fighting. You keep fighting for us.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you fight.
Yeah, stand and be counted, my
like,
friend.
seriously,
Yeah.
I'm sick and tired of being the only one that does this.
Exactly. And so what I do is I usually start the speech something like this, like, we have teachers who are incredible people. I taught 4th grade. I've been there. But the teachers union are not teachers. It's a political organization.
Yeah.
And if you want to belong to an organization that actively works against your interest, we have a problem.
So what
here.
is that temple recommend question? You were a bishop. You got them all memorized, right?
No, I used to. I mean, they changed them since then. But basically, yeah, do you have any sympathies or, affiliations with organizations that are contrary to the principles of the gospel?
So do you think that teachers unions fulfill that definition now?
I'm not going to be the guy to say that.
Come
but
on,
I'll
you're a
tell
judge
you,
in Zion if you're a
well,
bishop.
Not anymore.
Come on, I know not right now, but if you were a bishop nowadays and you ask the question, do you affiliate with groups or organizations that are against the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Do you feel that teachers unions, after they're saying things like this and putting out bills like this and supporting movements like this, do you think that this rises to the threshold?
Well, I think actually you raise a good point too, because you're not just supporting it with your words, you're actually paying for this privilege.
No, I get, but do you think that California members, with as bad as the teachers unions have gotten, do you think that it's reached a point where you have to consider in the temple recommended review the affiliation therein because of these kinds of bills and this kind of rhetoric that's coming out of the teachers unions?
Well, I think if you're not paying attention and you allow this to go on, then you have a problem. Yeah. But again, I'm not the guy asking the questions anymore. But if you're a teacher, and I actually have had this debate. I had one Latter-day Saint.
But has it gotten that bad? Like that's the question that we're asking in this show right now is, has it gotten bad enough that a member of the church, you feel, by paying into the teachers union, is now paying into organizations actively opposing the church?
Yes, because all you have to do is listen to the legislature when the teachers union, whether it's the California Federation of Teachers or the California Teachers Association, which is the two largest, CTA is the biggest. But when they come in and they front load everything with this over sexualized, hyper, crazy material, you're paying for it. So yeah, you're subsidizing it. So yeah, I think it's time for Latter-day Saint teachers to take a hard look at why they're supporting an organization that actively works against their faith and their morals and their ethics.
Okay. So, all right. Then what can we do, man?
Well, it's very simple. They can just leave the union. But they don't want to most of the time because teachers are very agreeable people. They want to, they're not out there to be the one, their fist raised in the air and go in revolution.
Oh, no. Yeah, the leftist, the secularist ones do.
Correct. But
but
our people aren't that way, right? Generally speaking.
No, but are we now mixing suburban niceness with Christ-like kindness?
Well, I think we also have this sort of Captain Ronnie Pahoran sort of, situation. Like, yeah, you're going to sit there on your throne type deal. I think we're at that place where you've got to get off your throne. You got to actually speak out. You actually have to do something. And in your school, what I would say, if you have a problem with this, don't just leave by yourself. Leave with 5 or 6 other teachers. Like, do it in a group if you feel like you need that sort of support. Because what will happen, the other side will do this. They'll attack you relentlessly. I'm dealing with this right now with a friend whose husband's being threatened because of decisions being made there. We have a lot of...
What decisions? Because he left the union? He's getting threatened or what?
Yes. Jobs, in the state of California, this was a Supreme Court ruling. This is not something that the state of California decided on. The United States Supreme Court and the Janus decision said you do not have to belong to a government union to have a government job.
Okay.
So people could leave. We expected that they would leave faster. They're leaving at a clip in California. About 27% of government employees have left since then. That's a great number. Once you hit about 30, 35%, that's when you start to hit the cliff. But we have to get to that place where they can barely keep their lights on. And on some unions, it's going faster than others. The teachers union is not going as fast as I think it should go. But if you look at the places right now, so LA had their strike, SEIU did a few weeks ago, the teachers did in sympathy, struck in solidarity, and they got their big piece of the pie. But what happened? The cost was the kids weren't in school for a week.
Yeah, you know what members of the church need to do? We need to do what Mexican filmmakers did in the late 90s. Do you remember that movie, A Day Without a Mexican?
Oh, man, that's been a long time.
Yeah, I think it was Robert Rodriguez's first film. No, it wasn't Robert Rodriguez. It might have been the other filmmaker. I can't remember. But it was A Day Without a Mexican. And it was a funny faux documentary. Right. It was like a mockumentary of Californian society and white suburbia if all of a sudden this cloud of smoke came in from the ocean and just took off all of the Mexicans. Well, actually, it was all of the Latinos, but, the white people were too ignorant to understand that there's other countries besides Mexico, right? Like Guatemala and stuff. Yeah, exactly. So he made this really funny kind of mockumentary style film called A Day Without a Mexican and showed how Californian, Arizonan, and Texas society would just utterly fail if literally all of the Mexicans went John Galt and just disappeared like Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, right? We need to make A Day Without a Mormon.
Yeah.
Law enforcement fails.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? I know 3 chief of police right now, members of our church.
Yeah.
All right? Within a 30-mile radius, okay? Yeah. We're talking top brass here, okay?
Half the CHP is Latter-day Saint.
Yeah, half the California Highway Patrol, right? There needs to be some kind of uprising of awareness.
Judges.
That's a day without a Mexican, but a day without a Mormon,
It'd be crazy.
Okay, cool. So keep going. I interrupted you.
So teachers need to leave. And if you don't feel like doing it by yourself, then leave en masse. Leave with a whole bunch of teachers so that you're not, by yourself. And if they come after you, then you have some sort of, at least a group to work with. There's ways to do it. You can go to our website at California Policy Center, which is mypaymysay.com. If you have any problems, we will help you with the legal issues or anything else. We'll guide and direct you. don't sit on this information too. Share with your family and friends. If you have a daughter, if you're an older Latter-day Saint, and you got a daughter or a son that's teaching, tell them they don't have to belong to the union. This sort of information needs to be shared because a lot of people don't know.
Is there massive hits to their pensions or to their pay?
It doesn't impact any of that stuff. The only thing the union will strike back at, they'll say one thing, and I don't want to give it legitimacy by saying that it's true, but there is a certain amount where the union can protect where you have some sort of liability. So something bad happens in the classroom, there's some liability insurance that comes along.
Oh, you molest a kid in California. Oh, they'll defend you.
Wow.
Like Joan of Arc did France.
Yeah,
okay.
right.
You actually sneeze wrong at some kid that you didn't know was 1 pound overweight. And all of a sudden you're fat shaming in the middle of the class and they're going to take you to task and they'll recommend you get fired. Well, they'll hire the lawyer to fire you.
And depending on which side they feel like you're on. So you can actually get liability insurance that's far cheaper, and we can help direct you to those resources. And in fact, it's even better because they defend you, not the union. People forget that the lawyers for the union aren't there to defend you as a teacher. They're there to make sure that the union doesn't get crushed. And so we will help any teacher that wants to leave. Now, I have heard the counter argument that has a tad bit of legitimacy, and this is, we stay in the union because we want to keep CTA, the state union, out of our local union stuff. And the best way for us to do that is by being part of the leadership of the local chapter. I think, okay, I can understand that if you have a decent school.
And that's somebody that's actually also heavily involved.
Very
these
involved.
People aren't. That, like, I kind of feel it's that way with Democrats at this point. Like, I don't feel you can actually be an actively registered Democrat with how evil their platform is, and maintain any kind of spiritual connection to God, being fully aware, unless maybe you're thinking, okay, I've been a Democrat for a long time and I know they've gone astray. And just like I love my state and I love my family and I love all this stuff, I'm going to try and get them back on a right path, and I'm going to try and influence them from within. I mean, I believe you can be a missionary for God's grace and love into secular organizations. But what happens is usually those people, they're Lot's wife and their tent is pointed towards Sodom.
Or they're relying on a cult of personality for a period of time, right?
Yeah.
That can only take you for so long. I don't have a problem if there is a school district that's largely conservative and the union rep or the president for that local chapter is holding back. But I'll tell you, that doesn't last forever. And in California, they're coming after every single one of us. Every single one of us.
Do you hear any whisperings in the state capitol and in actual official halls of power, not just Twitter, of just them actually wanting to get to a point where they could make an arbitrary condemnation of you for your faith, where they could eliminate enough religious protections, where they could give a pastor jail time for giving the wrong kind of sermon, or they could remove a teacher without job protections for believing Joseph Smith was a prophet and we don't like how you did Prop 8, so we're going to get rid of you? Do you think they're actually trying to make it so they can actively persecute members of the church for their beliefs?
Yes. So I actually have a specific example. SB 350, about 3 years ago. Jerry Hill was a Democrat legislator from the Bay Area. He's on his way out. He had a bill that would basically get rid of the priest penitent privilege in California. Different states do things differently, and being a bishop.
Well, of course, now all of a sudden the left cries and says, well, you just don't want to protect children. You want to protect all of the bad people in there.
So I've heard that.
Illuminate us.
I've also been on the calls with the attorneys when you're trying to work through some really difficult and challenging issues. And if you want to completely
because you're just trying to defend the church that wants to protect all of the pedophiles because you're pedophile adjacent because you believe in God.
Yeah. If you want to destroy any church trust between a parishioner, a ward member, and their bishop or pastor, get rid of the priest penitent privilege, because that will
and drive
shatter.
It underground.
Yes.
Drive all of the bad, evil stuff that starts with a big P underground. Hey, here's a good idea. You and I are both, recovering libertarians, so we understand this argument. You want to make the drug trade really violent, really bad, really evil, really fast? make it illegal.
Yeah.
Drive up the price. So the only criminals and bootleggers and violent criminals traffic in the commodity known as X illegal substance. You know what I'm saying? Legalize it, and all of a sudden, at least the violence goes away.
Well,
you know,
when you become a bishop, there's this weird transformation that happens, and there really is a mantle with it. And I felt it come, and I felt it go. The day I was released, it was a huge relief off my shoulders. But you build a relationship with the members of your ward. You really do, and it is deep, and it's something that can't be even transferred to counselors. It's something that really is substantive. And so when you have people come in who are truly penitent, they really want to fix something that's wrong. And believe me, I have heard some doozies that in a million years, I would have never, like, I couldn't have conjured with the best fiction writers imaginable. Truth is indeed stranger than fiction.
Okay.
And when you used to read the old handbook, was it Handbook 1? Have you ever read Handbook 1 before?
Don't even know what that is.
Okay, so that they had Handbook 2, and then they came back and made the General Handbook now. But it used to be only stake presidents and bishops had Handbook 1. And Handbook 1 was pretty explicit about a few things. And you'd read through it. When I was first bishop, I was like, holy cow. They didn't put this in here because it happened one time. Right? Jeez. They put this thing in here because it happened multiple times. And I had to step back and think, okay, there's a lot of really intense counseling and counsel, not like therapy, but like discussion about what needs to happen to train priesthood leadership. And really, when you call a bishop, it's not an easy matter. And it's fun to knock the weird bishops and the not so eloquent bishops and the fuddy-duddies. They exist.
Yeah, we all know one.
Okay. But I'll tell you, 95% of these guys, they're doing the best that they can. Right now, I have 5 of my best friends growing up are bishops right now.
Ah, hey, Mr. Overachiever here. See, 5 of my best friends are in freaking prison. But.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
I came from Colorado, so things were a little bit different. But one of the things I've learned is these guys have really tempered over time. Like, they're not crazy. And the compassion and love that you have. And so Jerry Hill has this bill. He's going to push it through. I was working for them at the time, John Morlock, who was senator from Orange County, good Christian man, but he comes from a Reformed tradition where they don't have the penitent. You don't have confessions in a lot of evangelical churches. Yeah. It doesn't exist. So it's a Catholic and it's a Latter-day Saint thing, really, when it comes down to it. And some will throw the Jehovah's Witnesses in that pile, but that's a different thing entirely. So Jerry Hill wants to have this bill, and my boss at the time was the vice chair of the Judiciary Committee. He was trying to get him to move it along, and he said, why don't you come in and talk, as my chief of staff at the time, when I was chief of staff, is a bishop. And Jerry Hill, to his credit, came in, and we had a good conversation for 45 minutes. My boss just stepped back, and he let me have this. This is one of the few behind the scenes conversations where I was able to say, listen, I know you're a lapsed Catholic, you're atheist now, but this is a big deal. It's not a thousands of year old tradition just because. This is a substantive thing that's happened for almost 2,000 years. To just go and get rid of it. Yes, I know that different states do it differently, but they also have different ways and cultures and laws as well. So I sat there, and at the very end, the bill didn't go anywhere. It died. I don't want to take full credit for it, but I think it was kind of one of those things. I was put in a position to have a conversation on a bill that literally would turn the church upside down tomorrow.
Yeah, and this is why we need more members of the church actually engaged in these politics.
But most people don't want it because it's yucky, right? It's icky.
No, betas and basic bros. And these spoiled, rotten, top of the pride cycle boomer Mormons who have been resting on their laurels and comfortable in Zion for 50 years. Yeah, they don't want to because it's icky.
No, and it's hard. Politics is every single day life. I remind people, too, the word politics comes from the word citizen. If you're a citizen, in Greek and in Latin, it's the same principle. Everything
it's good
you
citizenry.
do is,
just like there's good husbandry, there's good citizenry.
Well, exactly. So. But every decision you make, what kind of cell phone you have, what food you eat, what kind of clothes you wear, what kind of car you drive, that's all a political decision. This is just as important. If you're talking about education policy, if you're a teacher that's in the union, you have a political decision right now. Are you going to stick with the people who are going to harm us, or are you going to step back and take a stand? That's up to you. It has gotten that bad in California. We cannot sit back and wait for another generation of kids to go into complete obsolescence right now. That's what's happening. We have kids that are in incredible anxiety, depression, suicidality. Go down the list. We've lost a whole almost generation of kids in terms of their productivity going forward. And
their socialization, their
and we have
ability
we've socially promoted them because we don't want to deal with all the problems that we unleashed on them.
Yeah, and there's no way these people are going to get married, have children, become fully functional adults and citizens that carry on this great civilization one more generation. They're not equipped for that. They can't handle that. And why? Because we haven't given it to them. We haven't trained it. We haven't trained them. We haven't bestowed our knowledge. We have failed them.
Yeah, we have. And that's why every single night I read to my kids, if I can, if I'm home. I'm obviously here with you right now.
Well, now you're just bragging, bro.
No, if I can, I will do it. And it doesn't matter what I'm reading to them because we need to make that connection as parents. I own my kid. The teachers don't. They only have them for 180 days of the year. Why would I expect them to make really monumental decisions that will last their whole life if I'm not involved in that conversation?
Yeah.
I mean, even if I'm the worst parent in the world, I wouldn't expect that Carden would come in and say, okay, Lance, sorry, step aside. I'm going to take over the kids now because you're really ruining it. Right? I'm the oldest of 5 kids. My wife's the oldest of 5 kids. I can look at my brothers and sisters-in-laws and think that they're wonderful people, and maybe they're not doing the best they could with their kids, but I'm the last guy on earth to walk in and say, no, step aside, I'm going to take it over.
Yeah, unless it's something crazily abusive.
And there's those cases. I'm not arguing against that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that for a preponderance of most parents, they're trying their best to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Parenting is hard.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So any final words?
Yeah, leave the union.
Wow, that was fast. I was going to say any final words you would like to just boom. Yeah.
No, leave the union.
Okay. Now, is that specific to teachers' unions? Or?
Well, I would encourage anybody who's a government employee. It's hard. FDR said this the best. He said it's impossible for the taxpayer to really have a seat at the table when the people negotiating contracts are on both sides of the table. That's why we shouldn't have government employee unions. And that's why he, again, a very firm progressive Democrat, resisted the push to have public employee unions. It was really Jerry Brown back in the 70s that said, okay, let's usher this in, this collective bargaining for public employee unions.
It's always California.
To do what?
Jerry Brown in California invented this.
To do what? To buy these people off. And he did. And when you bring in close to $1.2 billion a year, all of the unions, so your police officers, your prison guards, your other SEIU, $1 billion+ a year. Why do you think politics has gotten so expensive in California?
Yeah.
It's our tax dollars going to work against us. And so if you're a member of the union, I would say if you really believe in that union, you think you can change it, God bless you, you're a fool. It can't happen. You got to step out. Defund them. End them, don't mend them.
Oh, snap. End them, don't mend them. Okay, I'm going to end on that one right there. That was pretty good. Let us know in the comments below. Are you a member of a teachers union? Has this evil come to your shores? Is this something you're dealing with in your district? If you're a parent of young children out there, have you had firsthand experience with this? Let's keep the conversation going in the comments below. Let us know what you think. This is Midnight Strike Through Mormons. We'll see you guys in the next program. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with us all the way to the end of the video. If you haven't had a chance yet, please like it. If you haven't had a chance yet, please subscribe or click on the alert bell so you receive an alert for all of our videos. And if you haven't had a chance yet and you've got children in your family, please consider checking out our sponsor's book, Sheeple. It's a children's book written by Royal Ragsdale, one of our viewers, that teaches your kids how to stand up for their faith, how to stand up for their values, how to stand up for their friends in the face of adversity so they don't become one of the sheeple. It's super cute, super affordable, and super fun. It's also available on Amazon for an affordable price, and the link will be in the description below. Please check it out. Tell them that Cardin sent you, and check us out on midnightmormons.com. Also, if you'd like, we have a little bit more content. There should be a video right about here and another video right about here. Check those out as well. This is Midnight Strike Through Mormons. We'll see you guys in the next video.